The second part, I just want to, kind of like pick your brain a little bit more about, I guess, perspective on Americans from a Japanese person and Canadian side things.
Let's start with what Americans think of Canadians. Canadians think that Americans think that Canadians are just super nice people. Like they're always just like, if you bump into them, they say I'm sorry, right? They have weird accents with certain words.
Afraid of the dark.
Afraid of the dark. Like that's a big thing. Yep.
Where did that come from? I've never heard that before.
Yep.
Wow, no, they're definitely afraid of the dark. It's like
what?
Proven.
Who's not afraid of the dark?
What else is there? Yeah, I don't know. Like I think Americans just be like, yeah, we're happy to be American, and that.
Oh, and I'm sure that sentiment is mutual though, probably. Like I'm happy to be Canadian, but not like Americans.
I mean, but if they're as nice as we think they are, they're probably not thinking that, right? Like that's.
Okay.
So, let's start with the Canadian side of things. And obviously, growing up there, you probably meeting some Americans and stuff like that, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like as a whole, also I think maybe like America is a very diverse place, right?
Super
depending
diverse,
on where you are in America.
Yeah.
And Canada isn't quite as diverse culturally, but like there is some diversity. There's the French part, there's West Coast, there's Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, and my like honest opinion of people in Toronto, maybe just because it's where I'm from, is that like I've like my whole life I've heard Canadians are super nice, blah blah blah. And yes, people say I'm sorry if you just like bump into someone, but for me that's just like without thinking, it's just something I do unconsciously. And I know like a lot of Americans don't, but besides that, to be honest, my whole life I've never felt like people in Toronto are particularly friendly or nice at all. I don't know where Americans are getting this.
Wait, hang on. Can you compare that? Compare that to like a level of friendliness. Like what is it's like? Have you been to America before? Just wondering.
Yeah, a few places. Yeah.
Can you give me the few places you've been to? Just wondering.
Like New York,
okay,
Florida.
Compare that to New York. More friendly or less friendly?
Oh, more friendly for sure.
Okay, because New York's are rude. People,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So like as a whole, I think Canadians are, I guess, a bit like friendlier and probably a bit more respectful, especially like the West Coast Canadians. Even when I go to Vancouver, I'm like, oh my God, everyone here is so friendly. As someone from like the East Side. But at the same time, and I know you just said like Americans like to think, oh, like thank God we're American and we're not from Canada. I think that's very prevalent in Canada too. That like, thank God we're not Americans. Thank God we live up here.
I'm sure.
Wait, is that like always, or has it just been in like the last 4 years?
4 years. Okay, so going to Europe though, I've seen that for the last 10, 15 years for sure.
From Europeans.
Okay. From Europeans side. Yeah.
Okay.
Going to Europe, I've seen that.
But like from American, I'm like, obviously they think only that last 4 years, right? That's
But I'm sure it's growing up though, right? Obviously when you do the exchange program, like things like that, I just wondered from that experience.
Yeah. Like definitely from the Americans I've talked to, Americans and as a whole, especially like you were saying, like the New York people are for sure like more direct than Canadians. Like they just kind of come off as harsher around the edges. And yeah, just like a bit more like intense people in general, is what I find. But I think like I said, like Canadians often think of themselves, I feel like the Canadian media too is like, thank God we're not American, we have free healthcare, we have all these things.
So more superior in a sense.
In a sense, yeah. Like I do sense that a lot from all the Canadians I talk to. And what I sort of don't really like about the whole thing is that like a lot of people are saying, oh, Americans are so racist, Americans blah 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 are like very hateful people or whatnot. But the honest truth is that Canada and other countries just have very different circumstances to the US. Like we don't have a country on our border where people come in or are illegally coming in, for example.
Correct.
Wait,
and
Americans aren't coming.
No. Like Canada doesn't border Mexico, and there's no border issues with
That's
Mexico,
true, yeah.
for example,
Because
right?
think about it, right? So Canada does have to deal with the situation where third world countries are migrating into the border.
Right.
It's first world countries that are migrating.
It's first world country. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the truth. And I feel like a lot of Canadians like have this superiority complex that like we're better than them because we don't hate immigrants. Well, you don't hate immigrants because all the immigrants coming to this country are like well vetted by the government, and they don't just enter through a border.
Yeah.
And I think
so it's different. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and people should realize that like at the end of the day, we're all just humans, people, like,
and trying to get a better life.
Better.
Yeah.
And if Canada was in the exact same situation as America, like if you put a Canadian in America and left them there for 10 years, they would just think like every other American, I feel, or like much more like Americans. You're just reacting to your circumstances. And Canada happens to be in a lot more favorable circumstances in many ways.
I can see that.
You think so?
Which makes sense.
You don't think if we flipped America and Mexico, right?
So Mexico's in the middle.
So they're in the middle, and they're coming. They're like migrating it. They're migrating into both, right? You wouldn't think that they would have the same mentality.
Yeah. I mean, Canadian immigration is already tight already, by the way. So
yeah, it's quite strict.
Yeah, it's very strict already. So they'll probably be more strict, to be honest with you, Robert.
Yeah, or like if
a
people
bigger
were like,
wall. That's what they would do.
I'm not even saying that, but like I think as a whole, I'm just trying to say like my notion that Canadians are superior to Americans, I think, sort of misguided because
which makes sense
in the same circumstances.
Yeah,
I found it funny one time. I think it was the Warriors were playing the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, the Raptors,
finals, right?
Yes,
and
I was there for the Raptors finals, one of the games
in Toronto.
In Toronto.
Yeah, so they
nice.
So I think one of the like the late night shows, they sent someone there and they're like, "Hey, we want you to like say, oh, go Raptors," right? And so they all like all of the fans, like man on the street, all the fans came on and they're like, "Oh yeah, go Raptors." And then they're like, "Oh, we don't have time to go to San Francisco and get Golden State fans. Can you guys put these shirts on and say it?" And all of them did it.
No, the Canadian people?
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, as a Golden State fan, say some like bad things about the other team." And they're like, "We can't do that." And then as Toronto fans, they're like, "Say something bad about Golden State." And they're like, "We can't do that. We don't know. Like, they're probably good guys, you know?" Like, that's why everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Canadians are too nice to do anything that's like mean-spirited towards other people."
That means less bullies, right?
Yeah. Do you have less bullies? Do you
I don't know. I never lived in the
high
US.
School.
No. Actually, okay. Growing up in high school or middle school, have you encountered bullying? Just wondering. Growing up,
personally, like, have I been bullied? No, nothing to like an extent I would call bullying. But of course, like kids are kids. Kids are shitty all the time. There's lots.
I'm just wondering. Like, I encountered bullying from middle school, elementary school.
Okay.
So yeah. So even in Venezuela, I encountered bullying. Like so. So I encountered bullying in two different countries. Just say about that.
Yeah. I didn't feel that when I was growing up. I didn't feel like bullying happened to me. It definitely happened to like my sister and like other people I know. But like. I didn't feel that, and then Mike's came on and was like, "Yeah, I was definitely bullied."
Yeah, I got into fights. I got into fights and so that punch a teacher too, things like that. You know, so it happens.